special, now airing nationwide. So thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Davis.
Oh, my pleasure, Ellen.
Now, when you say give up grains, do you mean even such things as rice and millet and quinoa and other grains like that?
Yeah, grains, that is the seeds of grasses, are quite promiscuous genetically. They share characteristics quite freely. So, for instance, there's a very toxic protein in wheat called wheat germ agglutinin. It sounds like gluten, but it has nothing to do with gluten. It's called agglutinin because when it contacts human blood, it causes it to agglutinate or clot. It's a very potent clotting agent and inflammatory agent when it gets in the body. Well, wheat germ agglutinin is in rice. Corn doesn't have any gluten or really gliadin. Gliadin is the protein in wheat, rye, and barley that's very toxic. Corn has a protein called zein. So people say, oh, but corn is gluten-free, which is true, but it has a counterpart called zein, which is quite toxic. So in other words, if you look more closely at grains, you find problems with every single form of grain, whether it's rice, oats, triticale, millet, sorghum. They all have problems. They all share one characteristic, and that is they raise blood sugar higher than table sugar. So I was always astounded in years past when you hear the dietary community telling people to either diet rich in healthy whole grains and partly to control their blood sugars. Well, that's not true. Whole grains raise blood sugar higher than table sugar because they have among the highest glycemic indexes of any food. And that's because there's a very unique form of carbohydrate in grains called amylopectin A. And it's very efficiently, we can't digest most of the components in grains, but we can digest the amylopectin A, and that's why blood sugar goes sky high after, say, 2 slices of whole wheat bread, a bowl of oatmeal. We're told oatmeal is heart healthy. That's ridiculous. It raises blood sugar sky high. All somebody has to do is get a blood glucose meter, do a finger stick, and check a blood sugar 30 minutes after eating oatmeal. You'll see just how high blood sugar can go after oatmeal.
Actually, that's excellent advice, Dr. Davis, because I know you're all about, especially in your new book, Undoctored, Why Healthcare Has Failed You and How You Can Become Smarter Than Your Doctor. You're very much involved in people taking charge of their own health and wellness. And getting a little glucose meter, even if you're not diabetic, is really excellent because you can do what you just stated, actually monitor what kinds of meals raise your blood sugar.
Yes. The doctor, of course, tells you to use a glucose meter if you're a diabetic to adjust your insulin and drugs. That's all he tells you. And he tells you to check a blood sugar prior to a meal and 2 hours later. But if someone tweaks those rules, for instance, checks a blood sugar prior to a meal and then 30 to 60 minutes later looks for the peak blood sugar, if you identify the foods that cause those big rises in blood sugar and either cut them out or reduce them in portion size, over time, type 2 diabetics become non-diabetic quite effectively. And people can use that little twist of the rules to lose weight at accelerated rates. So I love giving people tools that empowers themselves. Ellen, this wouldn't be necessary. You and I wouldn't even have to talk if doctors were doing their job, if the healthcare system was actually making people healthy and slender and getting them off drugs and making them free of hospital procedures. That's not what they're doing, right? They're pushing drugs on us. They're putting us on $100,000 a year biological specialty drugs. They're trying to get us in the hospital for procedures because that's what healthcare is about. Healthcare is not about health. It's about monetizing health. And I often say the enemy of the healthcare system is not sickness. It's healthy people, because when you're healthy, you are absolutely useless to the healthcare system. So you and I are about helping people be healthy because the doctors aren't doing their jobs.
I have to agree, and I want to remind listeners that you're listening to Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ellen Kamhi, the natural nurse, and my guest today is Dr. William Davis, the author of Wheat Belly, which I'm sure you've heard of, major bestseller, and his newest book, Undoctored. Here is a quote from Dr. Davis. I propose that people can manage their own health safely and responsibly and can achieve results superior to those achieved through conventional health care, not less than, not on par with, but superior to. Very powerful, Dr. Davis.
You know, I say that with confidence, Ellen, because I saw it happen thousands and thousands of times. It started with the wheat belly message. People would say, I told my doctor I was going to do this wheat belly lifestyle. Eliminate all grains and sugars. I'm going to take vitamin D and fish oil, blah, blah, blah. And the doctor said, that's stupid. You're going to have a heart attack. You're going to get fat or whatever. And they would do it on their own. And they'd come back and they'd be 63 pounds lighter. They'd be off insulin and diabetes drugs, blood pressure medicines, acid reflux drugs, antidepressants. They'd be free of fibromyalgia, etc. And the doctor would have no idea why they're so healthy. So what I saw happen, Ellen, was that people were achieving impressive levels of health and slenderness and feeling and looking younger despite the bungling of the doctor, despite the fact that the doctor had no idea what it was these people had done. And so I start with that idea that just given a handful of tools, you don't have to diagnose your own disease, just given a handful of starting strategies, whether you were labeled with rheumatoid arthritis or fibromyalgia or plantar fasciitis or migraine headaches, the overwhelming likelihood is that after engaging in these handful of strategies, you'll no longer have any of those conditions.
Yes, and we see it over and over again in what you might want to call complementary, alternative, or actually what I call good evidence-based medicine, because the science is there.
Absolutely. That was one thing that surprised me. A lot of the science has been worked out. A lot of it doesn't make headlines, though, because sadly, the stuff that makes headlines is the stuff that makes money also. And one of the worst things to blight the American landscape is direct consumer drug ads, because now we see the network TV and cable TV doesn't like to air anything that's a negative with healthcare. They'll host reports about healthcare politics, but not anything negative against healthcare itself. So this means that what you and I do and try to get the truth out about health is triply important now, because a lot of network TV is simply not carrying it anymore.
This is so true. Now, what are some of the steps on your program? And I think you also have a cookbook and recipes available for people who might choose to stop eating grains.
Yeah, so people are scared by this often, Ellen. They say, what do you mean? You mean I'll never have pizza again? Or I can't have pumpkin pie at Thanksgiving? And as you know, no, you can recreate all these foods. You can make a glorious, delicious pizza. You can make wonderful cheesecake at the holidays. You can have a pumpkin pie. You can have just about anything, but we're going to recreate these foods by using some healthy replacement ingredients. So I'm sure a lot of your listeners already know that mashed cauliflower is at least as good, if not better tasting than mashed potatoes. Because mashed potatoes, unfortunately, raise your blood sugar sky high and make you gain weight. But mashed cauliflower is very benign and healthy. So it's not that tough to recreate these foods and enjoy holidays, entertain your kids and grandkids with truly healthy foods and not contribute to their poor health. So the cookbooks are filled with those kinds of things. All my social media sites are filled with ideas on how to do this, how to use natural, benign sweeteners, not nonsense like aspartame and sucralose. And you can enjoy wonderful foods, and you will not be deprived at holidays or entertaining.
Now, I know wheatbellyblog.com is a good place to look for you, certainly. And do you have any links to eating suggestions there?
There's lots on the Wheat Belly blog. There's lots of ideas in the Wheat Belly Facebook page. And now the Undoctored sites, undoctored.com, undoctoredblog.com, Undoctored Inner Circle. These are all sites also trying to cultivate this idea, not just of good eating, but also how people can collaborate with each other, how we can use various tools to gain even greater levels of health. So I'm really trying to, I really mean that when I say that you can achieve health that's superior to what the doctor can provide. Because the doctor thinks that giving you a statin drug prescription, he thinks that's health. He thinks giving you a colonoscopy, he thinks that's healthy. He thinks telling you to eat low fat and cut your cholesterol, he thinks that's healthy. It does nothing for health. In fact, a lot of the advice and tools used by doctors actually damage health. You know, the acid reflux drugs damage health. The beta blockers for blood pressure damage health. They cause high blood sugars and high triglycerides. The acid reflux drugs encourage autoimmune conditions and dysbiosis, disruptions in bowel flora. So what you and I can achieve, what your listeners can achieve, is truly superior to what you would get from the doctor.
Well, that is excellent, and I just want to run by quickly this blueberry cream pie recipe with flaxseed, cinnamon, butter, blueberries, coconut milk, unflavored gelatin, and, really, really natural ingredients. We're actually just about out of time. Dr. William Davis, please tell our listeners the best way to find you and just a closing word of advice.
Easiest places are the places you listed, the Wheat Belly blog, Wheat Belly Facebook page, Undoctored Facebook page, Undoctored blog. Those are good starting places. People are going to get acquainted. But, Ellen, as you know, this is essentially free. It might cost you a few dollars to buy, say, vitamin D, or you get a probiotic to reseed your bowels with healthy bowel flora. But we're not making money on these kinds of things. Health should be virtually free. It shouldn't cost you thousands of dollars for expensive drugs and thousands of dollars for procedures. Health should be wonderful and free to just about everybody. And there's nothing lost in trying these ideas. In other words, this is not exploratory laparotomy or a frontal craniotomy. It's just a change in diet and a handful of strategies. And you can decide for yourself whether magnificent health fits you well.
Thank you so much, Doctor, and thank you for tuning in to Herbally Yours, produced in the studios of 90.3 WHPC, Nassau Community College, Garden City, New York. For further information, email whpc@ncc.edu. This is your host, Ellen Kamai, the Natural Nurse at naturalnurse.com, inviting you to join us next week for another edition of Herbally Yours. Until then, stay healthy.